All right. Good morning, everyone. We're in a different room in the Lead Center right now because we're trying things differently with multiple guests and microphone situations and things like that. But either way, I'm still Jonathan, and it's nice to meet you and see you. I don't know why I meet you, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. But thank you for jumping in either live or listening later to our Dreams to Reality conversations. This time we are with the West sisters, Charliese and Chasah. And I don't know, I'm excited to talk about everything that the two of you have done and all of, I don't know, I was mentioning they've got a concept album. Just I don't even feel like I know enough about music to say the words concept album. But let's do it on the way here. It's called Swell. You absolutely need to go. If you stop listening right now and go listen to it, that would be okay. Otherwise, continue to listen to this and then go listen to the album. Plus a movie that you put together, plus God knows how many other things that you have coming up or whatever you want to do. So first, thank you for being here.
Thank you for sitting down. Thank
you. And I don't know, let's kind of jump in with just the storytelling aspect of your life. Like, where did that come from? I love sort of the glimpse of like your childhood that I got. We talked last week, and so like I don't know, tell people about what that was. I don't know where some of it comes from.
Yeah, well, I'll say in like a very literal sense, the start of actually beginning to take the idea of having a big imagination or having some creativity and actually putting it on the page in some way started a couple years ago, probably about 8 years ago at this point, when I had a break between two jobs. And the new job I was being hired on asked if I had ever taken a break between jobs and said I should take 2 weeks before I started. And in those 2 weeks, I saw a post about it was kind of a contest for a pilot concept. So like basically the first episode of a TV show that anybody might want to put together. And it needed to just be very STEM related and have characters of color, specifically women of color, because Google was doing a big initiative at the time where they wanted more women of color in media that were in the STEM arena.
Sure.
And I really don't even know what ended up happening with that whole contest, but that was enough for me to say, well, I've watched a lot of TV. I can come up with a TV show idea. So I sat down, outlined something, came up with an idea. Ironically, a lot of the idea centered around being inspired by the look and shape of the light center.
Really?
Yes.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Center. What are you talking about? This is awesome.
I thought it looked so cool and sci-fi and definitely made me think of time travel. So there was a lot of that happening in the story. And I continued after that, and I really needed feedback before I would submit to a contest and kind of get, knocked out of the rounds or, told you're missing a lot of things here or there. I realized I needed to ask other people what they thought and what they were reading on the page, like what I thought I was putting versus what they were getting. And so Charliese became the person that I asked a lot. In those early days, I was considered more of a solo writer who just had a very strong, I guess you could say, feedback group, which was my sister and my parents. I basically forced them all to learn what screenwriting was so that I could get feedback.
There you go.
Charliese is a really big television watcher, and so
couch potato.
Yeah, exactly. That was so kind of you. Television taker-inner of screen.
Yes, an observer. And so she could immediately kind of spot tropes and give me character feedback and really already kind of knew things and would say, oh, well, I saw in this TV show this happened, and so maybe if you did this, it would kind of give that same kind of feeling. And so that was probably about a year and a half until basically I was like, okay, we just need to start writing these things together from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that we can be
Let's skip the part where you do it and then go to bring it to her and she tells you just
to fix everything.
Yeah. From the beginning, which is so. I'm gonna pause for a second just because so much of what you said is every single entrepreneur's journey. Like, I had an idea, but it's nothing until you got feedback. You're like, you made some kolaches, and then but until you bring them to somebody, it doesn't matter. Like, and then you get feedback, and then you start all over again, and then you realize that, well, I should have gone this way, and even the people that you're getting feedback from. So this idea of, oh, well, I saw this in this other show or something. You could weave that in. I mean, that's no different than, all right, well, I saw what these other bakers did, and I'm going to weave that into how I do something. So it's just, I don't know, it's so fun to find all of the thread that runs through. Sure. It doesn't matter what the business is. It doesn't matter kind of where it's coming from. It's still, there's still these core elements that are, you got to get feedback. You can't be afraid to say it. I mean, certainly, I mean, I'm sure there was some element that was like, when you were doing this contest, when it was just you, it was like, if no one ever knows about this, like, that's cool. Like, yes. Like there's, but the moment you had to say, hey, what do you think of this? You know, like there's an element of like, can't take that back, right? Like, yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so for you, I mean, like the creative aspect, you know, comes from more than just being a couch potato. You know, there's so much more, like so much more.
Well, so I think I can kind of tie it to our childhood. So our parents were missionaries, and our dad is a pastor. And we would watch our parents get up in front of a whole congregation, and they were either telling the story of, you know, how they decided to make the decision to move overseas. We were in South Africa for a while, and in Zambia later, but also watching our dad work on his sermons. You know, he had to do the structure of a sermon, and that taught us a lot about story structure. He would start with a joke. Yeah, it was all communication, and we were just watching this from a very young age. Yeah, and then later in life, especially when Chasah had sort of invited me to write with her, it was just one of those things that I think it in a way came naturally, but only certain aspects of it. Like, Chasah's very good at story structure. I'm maybe more of like the character, the feeling, maybe dialogue kind of person, and it just kind of clicked.
And the one other piece is that throughout our early childhood, we were basically encouraged to take piano lessons. Yeah. And I say encouraged in a light way. It was mandatory. It was mandatory. We had to go to our lessons every week, and we were allowed to choose a second instrument if we wanted, but we absolutely had to stick with our piano lessons until our senior year. And so I think that's where a lot of that musicality and just the love of things like Broadway shows and you know, creativity as a whole also comes from. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I told this to Taylor, my wife. I was talking about the two of you over the weekend, and I was like, what I loved about it was like your mom, and I probably got this way wrong, but your mom didn't want you to just like see a piano and just start banging on it.
Yes.
Which is what you do if you've never taken lessons. Because like if you've taken lessons, then you know going to bang on the piano doesn't make any sense. Like that you know how to play it. Like just play it, even if it's not like great. Like that's better than. I was like, yeah. If for no other reason, everyone should take a little bit of piano so that people aren't just banging around like whenever they see a piano somewhere. Like,
especially in a public place. And we were visiting churches all the time, and of course they'd either have their organ at the front or a piano for, you know, the worship team, and we would run down the aisle and go, you know, start playing on it, and that is not what she wanted.
No.
There was no amount of that at all. Our youngest, the girls are doing very good with their piano, and Henry is. He's more just in the banging mode, but you could see it. There's elements.
He might be a drummer, though.
Absolutely, yeah. She's got that. Probably so. Okay, so you start to work together, and then you at some point had this idea to make a film. I mean, and I knew you both before Accelerate Northside, but then in Accelerate Northside, you kind of came with this purpose of we're doing this, which is really fun because I didn't realize that's why you were in Accelerate Northside. I thought, like, I don't know what. Until you voiced it, and then it was like, oh, that's really cool. And so what were you doing? Where did that come from? What were you trying to tell?
Yeah. So actually, we had hit a wall. We were making these scripts. We were writing them together. We were making these feature film scripts that would be like, an hour and a half, 2 hour long movies. And they were like big blockbuster action, fantasy, sci-fi. And then we would send them into these screenwriting competitions that you can find online. And it just, to me, it definitely felt like we were hitting a wall, and it felt like there was a bottleneck in that kind of process.
Yes, because although we were either placing in these screenwriting contests or getting really, really good feedback, there are probably thousands of people who are at varying levels of screenwriting. Some people who are pros and they can still submit to these contests because you win money if you if you're the winner. And so the bottleneck felt like, one, we were up against everybody else in the U.S. who just wants to write something.
Who wants to do that, including professional people who want to get more money.
And then at the end of the day, it doesn't really get made. But our goal at the time was maybe we can win one of these contests, which then also leads to you can have meetings with producers and they would get to see the big, fantastic idea that we came up with, and that would potentially be something they would want to make, or it would show we can make this similar thing. It's very similar to this IP you have over here. Yeah. So that was kind of like a vision and a pipeline that we had, but we very quickly realized, there's also that aspect that people don't really want to read. Even people in the industry don't want to read a 120-page script. They want to see something. And the way to start that is to make a short film, because nobody's giving us $100 million to make that feature movie idea.
Yeah, to make this thing, even if it was a good story that you could place with, you're right.
It was getting it made.
Yes. Getting it made. It's like,
yes.
I want to pause just that bottleneck of that aspect of arts, as we've kind of talked to more and more people just in general, just like is, having to get your work, whatever it is, to the right person. There's a finite amount of right people seems to be so common. I mean, it's musicians who, it's sort of the feeling of like the best songwriter there's ever been, you've probably never heard because they didn't meet the right person at the right time. The best filmmakers you've ever heard, or you could have ever seen, you'll never see because their work didn't get in front of the right person at the right time, at the right whatever. And so you do have this element of, now there's that in everything, but it's interesting. It seems like in the arts, maybe it's a bigger aspect because there's such a finite amount of films that can be made. I guess now music can be recorded so much easier and films can be made easier, but it's still a lot of time. I mean, so I don't know, it's interesting.
And I would say that it's not the worst thing in the world to aim for that and to try to go towards that path, because to be honest, I think one thing we're not afraid of is failure to a certain degree. And so the short film we made called Heritage, it's actually, what we ended up making, but the reason we wrote it in the first place was to try to get into another one of those programs from one of the big studios. We knew that they liked family-friendly stuff, and they really liked writers who would maybe dig into something like culture. So we wrote a very specific script to fit into this program and didn't get into that program.
Gotcha.
And had a script and then moved on with it in another direction. Yeah.
And it was doable by, at least by our standards at the time. I think we were both very ambitious, honestly. For our first short film, it was very ambitious. But when we started looking at different avenues, of how we could get funding for the short film, we had a little bit of a background from our day jobs in grants and application processes. So when we kind of discovered the world of arts grants, that's when we started to apply, tried to get the funding for the short film, and we were awarded a grant that allowed us to make the failed submission to the other.
So I bring that up because, again, the journey of entrepreneurship, it might be that you're trying to go for something and that door is closed, but that actually kind of leads you to the next door that's open.
Absolutely. I mean, like, if you don't fail there, I mean, one, like, that competition made you write the story.
Exactly.
And so it failed, but it didn't really matter because the story was sort of the point.
Exactly.
And then you went and made the story anyway. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you took it to festivals and you
Yeah.
got some accolades and like that showed them for not taking it. So how about that? Like, not that that matters, but okay. All right. So you went about making the film, and I kind of mentioned this when we talked last time. Like, I feel like the two of you talk about what you do differently than you did whenever you were in the Accelerate Northside program. Just from the space of, hey, we're filmmakers, hey, we're storytellers, hey, we're this. Maybe, and I just feel like I remember a little bit more hesitancy on just saying, well, we're putting together this. It was more like, well, we're putting together this versus this is what I do. You know, and so it's been really fun to watch that. I mean, like, and incredibly well deserved. It's not like, you know, this sense of false bravado. I mean, you've got an amazing film that you put together, this remarkable album, and people are recognizing it outside of here and inside of here. And that wasn't a question, but I was really, I don't know, it was so interesting to watch that.
It really just comes with time. I think when we started to say there was that bottleneck, but we were trying to take a step in the new direction of making a short film, and at the same time knowing, again, because of the background of like our day jobs, and just seeing other people's journeys in the artistic space, we knew we needed to make a short film and also really figure out, like, what does this business look like? Is it a business beyond just project and project and project and project? So when we came through Accelerate Northside, I think we were really trying to pull all the pieces together to understand how we wanted to articulate what the business was, what were the pieces and parts of running a business that we hadn't really thought about, running a production company, arts business, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think ultimately it just comes down to time and actually having done the thing. Literally, when we were starting in Accelerate Northside, we were going through the pre-production process of the short film.
Yeah.
And once you've done that, once you're in the editing stage, it's more and more real. Now, honestly, there are a lot of short films that don't ever get out of the editing stage.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I go, like, you start to edit and you either don't want to edit it anymore, or you don't. I could see
they run out of funds,
Yep,
or they
Run
can never.
into technical issues.
Yeah, technical issues. Maybe the audio wasn't great when you shot it, and you didn't realize a whole bunch of things really don't line up. Or the creative people who are putting into the project can't agree, and so
we're just so busy.
I could see all these things when you're doing a short film that's a passion project, or it's like this, it's a side gig because you both have jobs. I mean, like, I could see all the millions of reasons why it doesn't get made, including the, I don't know, like, elements of, we've already cut so much, I just don't like what's left.
Yes,
like
that too.
The whole heart of what this was supposed to be is gone because it's all over the editing room floor, right? So like,
you can't get over your own, you know, what we've had to learn in this process in the concept album that we've created and the two short films is, there's always going to be a gap between what we thought it was going to be as a finished product and what you end up with. And and not only is there just like a natural gap, but it can also be a talent gap, or a I don't know what word I'm really trying to look for, but a perception gap. Like, we thought we were reaching for this, and when you look at the finished product, it doesn't quite hit that. And so some people get to that part in post-production of a musical or a film and say, well, I don't think it's good, so I'm not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, and then you got that piece, which, you know, certainly all that starts to creep in the back of your mind of like, this isn't good enough, and you were an idiot for trying this, and like, what made you think you could do this? And and then if you're, I don't know, if you're in a space where you start to listen to it, it stops everything.
And thankfully, every project we've done, we've had such a great crew around us, and everybody was so supportive, and the process was fun. It was actually very fun to do. So I think that's why we were able to kind of push through all the doubts that we had and our insecurities about how it might look to other people, and finally put it out there, because it became about being more than us. Like, it was for the people that helped us make it too.
Especially with the the concept album with
Yes.
Swell.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about Swell more, because I mean, I don't know if people, which one maybe people know more. Like, hey, there was this film, but also like this concept album, which is newer, but still like, making that was fun to talk to you guys about the people, like finding ways to bring in people who, I remember one person you were talking about, like they've been in music a long time, but it's always been through worship teams or these other spaces, but they've always felt like I want to be on an album. I want to sing. I want to like it's what I'm doing. And so being able to give some people that chance is really like cool.
I'm fighting the urge to like name drop everybody, but I mean they know who they are. You can definitely see online who they are, and it's just so cool to see that it's a mix of people who just like us have like day jobs where you'd be like, wait, they sing, or they studied theater back in college, and it was so cool to bring these people and see this side of them and hear their beautiful voices, and just really have such a great time in the studio together with these people. And it was all like brought together by our orchestrator and our arranger, Brad Anderson, who just did such an incredible job with orchestrating music.
Yeah, we enjoyed working with him. And the people that we got to collaborate with on Swell, who we got to bring into the studio and show them our demo tape. So we basically would play the songs in our house and record them so that we could take it to the studio and be able to show all those people. So for some of that, just imagine some of the areas, nonprofit landscape, staff members across a couple of nonprofits in and around Lafayette and Acadiana who have these almost secret identities as amazing singers. And we either heard them someplace, at an event or on a worship stage, and approached them and said, would you care to, join us in our project and what we're doing? And we always got like a really excited response and a very like excited yes. And this was possibly most of the times before we'd even shown them the song.
Sure. Well, but if you are that kind of person, like, I don't know, I could see that you've been waiting, hoping that someone would ask you, like, hey, do you want to sing on this album, or do you want to play on this album, or do you want to be a part of this in some capacity? You always say yes way before you probably should, like, because you don't know that, like, like this, heavy metal album that is being put together. Like, wait a second, how am I going to fit into there? I think it's going to work. Don't worry about it. And the aspect of this, the superhero, the secret identity, I think that is such a part of about people in the arts in general. Like, people's connection to the arts is so much deeper than anyone ever realizes. Like, it's such a part of our lives that we don't necessarily truly understand. That me playing around on the piano with my daughter is me being in the arts. Like, me, or my kids drawing, like, or like someone doodling in their office, and how that could turn, like, all of those are artistic things. We just don't always think about the fact that, like, oh, we're all artists in some capacity. We're all creative because we have to be. I mean, we've thought more about that recently, about how the arts play such a role in our lives all the time, and we don't realize it. I mean, even from the way that, like, you don't learn the ABCs without singing the song. Like, the first thing you do in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade is spend like probably 90% of your day doing art in some capacity, like singing something, poems that help you learn things, some amount of coloring. So like, it's interesting. It's a giant part of our lives. And then at some point it starts to sort of like go in other directions, but like, I don't know, you can't deny the role that it plays and the escape that it gives people, often now. All right, so in putting together, whether it's, you can kind of jump on the film again, like, so you've made it, you've decided that you're going to put it out there. where was was it always going to be, hey, we wanted to put it in these spaces? Because you sort of talked about how it was this sort of quasi fail, but not really, the temporary failure in this competition, but then you made it into something, and then you started to, hey, we want to put it out there. And so where did that start?
So we had kind of just seen the model of a lot of the local filmmakers here who had done a similar thing where once they made their short film, they submitted it to a bunch of festivals, and to us, we were like, how do we do that? What does that mean? Well, we used a platform, Film Freeway, and it's basically like the one-stop shop for where you can find different festivals. Some of them are for specific genres of film, or for, they have themes to them, and maybe yours doesn't fit into that category. So you have to create a strategy of why you're submitting to some of these festivals, and it can be anything from, oh, I have a cousin who lives there, so if I get into it, like, I don't have to pay this much money to stay in a hotel, or it could be, oh, this is a festival for instance, the one that we did, Never Even, there was some film festivals that were for experimental films or films that were told in slow motion.
Yes. Because Never Even is told in reverse.
Yes.
All of the action happens
reverse and slow motion.
And
there was a few of those different kinds of festivals, but yeah. And so we did have a budget, and we could only submit to so many festivals, so we did have to make a choice of which ones we were going to submit to, and we did not get into all of them. It was a numbers game where I think we got into about 20% of the festivals that we submitted to for Heritage, and then we got into 10% of the festivals for Never Even. Yeah.
Never Even feels like a different film, though. I mean, like
it is. It was done with a much smaller grant and a much smaller crew, and it was no dialogue, because
interesting.
Even dialogue, that means you have to hire somebody to record the dialogue. Audio becomes a very difficult part of filmmaking, or can be. And so even from the beginning, we decided for that one, let's just do music.
Interesting.
And so that's like original music that we commissioned, but that means you don't have to deal with the whole side of a whole half
mic and making sure, gotta wait for the plane and all that. Like, no, you don't have to do any of that. Which honestly, for Heritage, we got like the best of the best.
Yeah.
And he probably had the most experience of anybody on set. But when it came to Never Even, because it was a smaller budget, we went with people who were also just like starting out, or people who had never done it before.
Which is cool.
Yeah, and it was like everything top to bottom was experimental, because I mean, we did like an action. It was really big, one big action sequence, and like our actresses, they
had never done action scenes before. And one of our actresses actually hurt her shoulder like the week that we were shooting, so there were a lot of logistics for that. But I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this.
Oh yes, I'm trying.
At some point, yeah. So look, yeah.
So we have something for you that is tied to Never Even.
Okay.
This is a prop. Okay. And be very gentle. It's very fragile.
This is the terrible idea.
But if it breaks,
can I open it this way? Like,
yeah, you should be able to. If it breaks, it's all right, because that's what it's made for.
So it's designed to break.
Yes.
Which is probably the most important thing you could have told me. Okay.
So in one of the scenes in Never Even, it's an altercation between two people, because
it's a bottle.
It's a bottle, and it's breakaway.
Kind of breakaway glass. It's fake glass.
Okay.
This came from they're a Louisiana company, Spectrum FX, and they gave us these fake beer bottles as part of our short.
That's incredible, because it does. I mean, like, that it's like way lighter, and it's not glass, and it's not.
But on camera,
there's no way. I mean, like, you wouldn't even think anything like that. That's incredible. That's awesome.
And it was just one of those moments where we reached out to them. We asked them to help us out, and they were so supportive, and they were just so willing to help us out.
I mean, I don't even know if I would have known to ask about these. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't know, like, it looks like a beer bottle, so I'm assuming that's what it was, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming it was glass, and you broke it over someone's face.
Yeah. All fake,
So
all
my
movie
first thing
magic.
would have been like, guess we need to go get a bunch of glass.
Oh
like,
my god.
and this is how we end up destroying actors. And
It's so funny. Being typical women, we were like, okay, everybody has to be so careful. And I think it was majority women on set, and so we were like, we didn't want the actress to hit the other actress with it, so it was really more of like a
Smashing it
throws
on
it down on
the
the ground as almost like a warning.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that's one of the things where next time we just kind of want to go for it and see what we
Yeah.
can do.
swing harder. Yeah, like, more. Yeah, we want to see some. Yeah, I love it. So, like, how would you? Well, I guess we can kind of finish up some of the. Were there any of the festivals that you kind of threw your movies into? That are there ones that you were like, you're happy for all of them, but were there some that were like, oh wow, like this is really impressive, and so maybe we're really good at this. Like, was there an element like when, because everyone I think at some point realizes like not just I enjoy this, but like, hey, I'm kind of good at this, and so is
it's hard to
there's
say
space,
that
I don't know.
for sure, because I think as artists we simultaneously are like super confident and love what we've made, but also have all the doubts in the world. And it was cool that we got to submit to a film festival in Cannes, in France.
Yeah.
It is not the Cannes Film Festival. It is
It's just a festival in Cannes.
Exactly. And
I think we should just call it Cannes Film
you
Festival.
know, don't want to get sued, but
Yeah, absolutely.
so it was cool to be able to say, okay, there's an audience not just outside of our local Acadiana area, but outside of the U.S. who thinks it's kind of a cool film and wants to show it to other people. So I think that one, to be able to travel internationally to see our film play in another country, in a movie theater in another country, to a group of people who were from, French-speaking African countries and France, and some people who had traveled from America to go there. That was pretty cool. And I think, there's just those small moments every now and then where it's like, okay, even if everybody doesn't love what we're doing, we get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, every entrepreneur, like, everyone's not your customer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first thing that we try to talk about, right? Like, everyone's not your, so everyone's not going to like you. Like, even brownies. Some people don't like brownies,
True.
which is crazy. Absolutely. So, which is nuts. But like, some people are allergic to something, or some people just don't, whatever reason, doesn't like it. And so, understanding that, okay, like, not everyone's going to appreciate it, but there are people who do. That's really cool. I mean, it's something that you built. Is Charliese, for you, I mean, like, anything, like, moments where you were like, oh, this might really be like a thing?
Well, I really liked a very local screening that we did at Vermilionville. We were able to do a screening. Well, we did multiple screenings throughout the day for people that were attending the Creole Culture Day.
Creole Culture Day.
Oh, cool.
Yes, which we had attended a few years before that moment when we were screening the film. And attending Creole Culture Day a few years back is what inspired the like storyline of Heritage, because there was a lot of people doing the Creole tables where they come and talk together. And so that was kind of a full circle moment. And you enjoyed it because
we got to meet a lot of people that we had never met before that are just right here in the town that we live in. But also, my mom had such an incredible time because she was like reconnecting with, like,
that's cool.
I don't want to say long lost
family members,
but kind of like they hadn't seen each other in decades. And then we had so many other people come up to us that just wanted to say, like, thank you for making something like this.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a nice moment, especially for a lot of the older Creole audience members.
Yeah.
They loved talking about the film when it was done, and they were just wanting us to show it to more people, which is always such a great encouragement.
We planned to show it twice that day, and we ended up showing it 6 times.
Yeah. So That's good. Yeah, 3 times more than you thought. So in looking at kind of Set West as like a production, like how do you see what do you see whenever you think about like what Set West is and where it's at now and what you'd love to see it grow into?
That's a good question. I kind of like to keep an open mind, and at the same time, I think very day to day. I think
Yeah.
So right now, it's like the vision, the biggest vision that I can see is kind of just finishing the second part of Swell, the concept album. But I don't know beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's a storytelling company at the core, and so that's why we've done Heritage, the short film, Never Even the short film, and then felt okay to jump into Swell, the concept album, and not necessarily continue that thread of filmmaking or of like producing a film.
Yeah.
I think we are, we've learned so much about writing, and it applies beyond just getting a script from start to finish. It also means we can help other people to think about their stories.
Yeah.
And it means that we can also be people who have a story idea and have now tapped a little more into the creative space where we live, and could eventually say, we have this idea and we want to make it. We know what it needs to look like, and we know who we need to hire, and we can get something done without being the people who are the writers and directors and editors.
The everythings, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
So I think there's room for collaboration in the future, and I think that we're just really excited for the fact that we jumped into the music space, are getting a lot of great feedback locally and with people who we've shared the link with. We want to finish that story of Swell so that people who are listening to it,
it's a great album. I feel like people need to realize
can know who the characters
it's so
are.
Cool.
Yes, and I think that's a part of like the ambition where we're like, well, we know this is the hardest part is going to be like getting people in the studio, like finishing a first part of the concept album and getting it out. So we were really focused on that part, and we have the outline of the story. We just need to finish writing it. So that's kind of, you're getting to see
all we have to do is finish writing it. We just have to write
exactly.
it.
Exactly. We just need all the time in the world. So you're getting a little bit of a look inside the hood there with what I'm saying. But I think it's just, we're excited that we feel confident to tell the stories that excite us and that might not look like what we've seen before. So something like Swell, I think you could equate it to maybe something like Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
Really, we're pulling inspiration from our favorite musicals, which include, Wicked and Hamilton to an extent, and Oklahoma. But what we know now more than ever is like how to push ourselves through the creative process.
Yeah.
So it's a creative company, it's a storytelling company, and I think it might take different shapes. The projects we do specifically might take different shapes as we move forward, but I do think there's like an element of what do we like, and how do we make that? Yeah.
Something did just come to my head, which is kind of jumping into the advocacy space for creatives. Something that was instilled in us at a young age was financial literacy, and that's something that I'd like to help other creatives with.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a giant piece of it is that you have this desire to create, to express yourself, and that can be through all these different art mediums. But if you can't eat, then you won't make it. Like it becomes really difficult. It's hard to and it's tough. But we talk about, I mean, like you also can't force people to like your art. Like so, there is an element of listening to the customer, listening to the viewer, listening to the listener, and not necessarily acquiescing to everything, but like pieces of it. Okay, like, well, yeah, you're probably right. Maybe there was too much of this, or this didn't come across, and realizing what parts are hey, like non-negotiables, and what parts are, listen, if that helps us get more listeners and viewers, and then like, who cares? Like, I don't need to die on that hill whenever like 99% of what I want is out there, but that's difficult, And so I mean, there's so much in the artistic entrepreneurship research space. It's the difference between this bohemian mindset versus this entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bohemian mindset very much is, it's all about the art, it's all about the expression, it's all about the creator and maybe the creation process, very much the performer, and there's a headbutting of arts versus economics, and commerce versus the entrepreneurial space, which very much is, okay, like I want this to be a part of my life forever, but I need to have a life. And so do I, listen specifically to feedback and make adjustments? Do I, I mean, in the music space, it's the band that knows we got to play this song every concert. It doesn't matter if we hate this song. People are there to listen to that song. If we don't play it, they're going to be mad.
Yes.
Like, and so it doesn't like, so we're going to play that song versus you go see a band and they're like, we're going to play all of our new stuff. And half the audience is like, why did I come here? Like, I could just stay at home and listen to it on Spotify. Like, what are we doing? So, I mean, like, but that decision, that knowledge of like, like bands that certainly have made it, I was talking with Scott Durbin, who runs the music program here, of, hey, listen, if you want to listen to remarkable guitar playing, like you listen to Rush and you go see Rush. But if you want to see a concert and a performance, then you go see Kiss, because they know how to put on a show. It's all about the theatrics and the lights and the da-da-da. But if you're just there to be like, I just want to be blown away by pure talent in playing, you're going to go see somebody else. Like, and there's spaces for both. Exactly. Like, there's not enough pyrotechnics. Maybe in Swell there'll be a lot of pyrotechnics. It's too expensive, I feel like. It's got to be too expensive. There's no way. Like, whatever this is. Okay, so it feels like there's also an aspect of, we could also do another conversation where we just talk about our favorite musicals, but we're gonna save that one.
Part two.
Like, because we could go deep diving. 30 minutes on Les Mis. But it seems like there's also a space of like wanting to include people who maybe don't get a chance, and maybe at some point you decide to go with like very seasoned actors and actresses and musicians. But there's also like, I don't know, you've sort of made a little niche of like, we're going to find people who, everyday people that you'd never guess, like within that person there was this. And we're going to like watch what happens when you shine the light on it. Like look what happens, look what comes out. And and then they do sort of go back to their other identity, right? Like, because then on Monday they will just go back to the coffee shop, or they'll go back to the nonprofit that they're doing XYZ in. But maybe more people end up seeing it and realizing it, and that person's this slightly different viewpoint or something. I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, so pieces of pieces of yourselves that you feel like, hey, like get through this process. It's one of the great things about art is that it reveals things to the people who receive the art and certainly the people who are creating it, right? I don't know, there's some things that you sort of like, if nothing else, there should be some pride. Like, hey, like we can create something that is worthwhile. But other things that maybe have shown up, that I learned this along the way about more yourselves.
I think, and it goes back to using people who we kind of know but may not get the chance to do that every day in their lives. It's just, I've learned how great art can be at connecting people, coming from the person who started off as like, okay, this is my vision, I'm a solo writer, I have this idea, and I think it's cool, and art being a collaborative thing that you can't really do without partnership. There's an aspect that I really have learned to enjoy about that, but also I think there are conversations with just people in my community that I would not have had otherwise, if they just saw me as this one thing, my day job, or my academics. And I just have learned to embrace starting a conversation with somebody like, what's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
And kind of going deeper than what might be that surface level.
Yeah.
So I think it's just helped me to build stronger connections in my community.
Yeah. We'll come back later to like
Yeah.
favorite movies and favorite books and favorite.
Yeah.
All right. What about you? Like, what?
I
Through the
think
process.
it's been cool to learn how collaborating with others can really teach you a lot about yourself, and also I think it's kind of taught me how to, I don't know how to word it. I guess like take a step back from myself and learn to trust others. Honestly, like that's kind of what it comes down to. Trusting others with an idea that you might have, or trusting them to do the skills that they have. Because like for one thing that we knew, like we're not the cinematographers on any of our stuff. We're not the camera people. And then for the music side of it, Chasah plays the keyboard to some extent, and me even less so. So it was like we knew we had to hand that over to somebody else. And then excuse me, as you can tell, I don't have my voice very like together today, and I'm not a singer. Chasah's a singer, and she did sing on some of the tracks, but for me, I knew that I was not like saying anything in the studio other than like, oh, could you sing it a little higher or a little lower, or like this, or put some emotion in it. But yeah, trusting.
Yeah. Trusting people to show up on time.
Exactly. Yes.
Nothing happens if like even one person is not showing up.
Yeah, sort of like almost very much a gigantic team thing where everyone is required for insert the scene. Even like person who's no lines, no nothing, but really need them in the background because the audience needs to know that they were there for later on whenever it's referenced. And like all those sort of tiny things that it's like super annoying. But great and wonderful. All right, so doing all of this with your sister, like, I'm not saying that sometimes that can be hard, but I don't know, like I think about things that happen with like my little brother and I don't know if we can put puzzles together, much less like, hey, let's go and make like a film. But so I don't know, what, like, did you ever think that like, oh, like we're gonna do something together, or did it just sort of come together because you needed someone to read your script and you had someone who?
Well, I think we always knew that we could work well together. A couple of things, growing up overseas, we have a brother in between us.
The one we don't talk about. He was not invited to do anything. He's out of it.
He only missed out on his opportunity of this collaboration because he moved to another state to go to college. But
he's a physical therapist.
And he's very successful, but he plays the drums.
He's doing
also,
fine. Okay, so we don't have to worry about him.
Not at all. He has creative, things that he does as well, because he also has to take some piano lessons. We did. So we always have these like jam sessions. So we've like done creative. We had creative fun as kids, not just always fighting. But
and past the obligatory piano lessons, we I don't know how to word it, but we were a little bit of a traveling show, you could say.
Yeah.
Oh no, of course.
The three C's, the three West. I can't remember exactly what our parents called us.
Yes.
But
because every church that they visited, like we said, they told the story of how they became missionaries, and it involved the fact that the three of us, I learned a song in kindergarten called "Be a Missionary," and so when they were literally considering, I didn't know this as a kid, that they were considering becoming missionaries. I came home, I taught the song to my siblings, we sang it to them, they decided, okay, I think we really actually need to pray about this.
There's something.
Yes. So every single church we visited, from age like 6 to probably about 17, we had to reenact this song as a trio.
Yeah.
So there's a little of that, like,
which
stage.
is fine from like 6 to 10.
Yeah.
And there's 10 to 17.
Yeah.
Where here we are.
Yes.
Right. So roll the song out again.
It's a little bit of that. But we say all that to say we learned, I think, really early on how to like appreciate the other person's perspective. We were talking about this in the car ride over here. I think we talk often and we're like, well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do something and you want it to get to the finish line, it can't all be disagreeing. As a creative endeavor, you have to like give and take. But I can see how even that advice to some people is like, yeah, that makes sense. But also, how do I not fight with the person who I'm collaborating with?
Sure.
And what our, I think, core thing is we are open to seeing the other person's perspective and say, okay, well, I don't like that idea yet. Maybe just honestly, like, I don't really get what you're saying. But if we were to go down that path with that idea, then what about this?
Yeah.
And answer this question. And like, if that's what you're thinking, then what does that mean for this thing over here?
Yeah.
And then we are comfortable saying, okay, we've traveled down that idea path. I can't remember. I think that's what we would always
kind of
down that rabbit trail. And then we say, okay, well, now that's the end of that rabbit trail. Let's reverse. And like, maybe we can go down another one or go back to that original idea.
Mm.
And hopefully you feel good that we went down.
Yeah.
Or in my case, there were things
just the journey was supposed to suffice you. And now we can do what I want.
So as sisters, it's a little of we know we want to get to the finish line, and like we can't argue all the way there. And also the finish line might not look like exactly what she thought or exactly what I thought. And then when we really need a tiebreaker, you know, we will say, okay, well, I was thinking this and she was thinking that. Mom, Dad, you understand screenwriting.
And sometimes we have to bring in our older siblings.
Yeah.
Well, there's three
There's
older siblings.
siblings, you know, us three younger siblings. So we're open. We open it up to feedback, and so that's how we kind of break the tie sometimes.
And it does mean that there's a lot of stuff that we've come up with that's gone unmade, but you know, nothing's ever really thrown away. We have a Google Doc, a living Google Doc that we call slapdash ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we're saying, oh, we'll put it in slapdash, sometimes that means like, I don't want to work on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
this
a terrible
is an
idea.
awesome you project later.
But like, don't forget it, so you should write it down. Or sometimes it's a genuine like, yeah, we should really come back to that. Like we're working on something else, but we should definitely come back to that.
You bold those in slapdash, and you just don't worry about the other ones.
They just sort of somehow find their way to the top of the document. There's a lot of
someone goes in and moves them around. And just like, I don't know what happened.
There's a lot of interesting stuff at the bottom of this years long Google document.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What I don't know. What do you see sort of your next kind of steps or your next things, or you know, is it, hey, let's really lean into Swell and finishing sort of closing that loop, or is it, hey, there's new things?
Yeah, definitely closing the loop on Swell as a concept album, and then taking that to the stage, from page to stage, as I recently learned is what they call it. So that would be a big dream of ours.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Which includes, like we said, you know, finishing up the music, but then also finishing up the story and hopefully creating what's called a libretto, which is the instruction manual you kind of need to be able to say to someone else, we'd like you to help us bring this to the stage. Here's everything you need to kind of do that, so it's not just living in our heads.
Yes, and so you're not, again, like, you're not doing everything. Like at some point getting to because it feels like maybe there's a desire or maybe a thought of like, hey, at some point we just want to be the storytellers and the creators, but we don't need to be the people shooting the film and doing the audio and the editing and the this, which like you got to do early on whenever it's just the two of you, but at some point. So because it's such a storyteller sort of idea, like, do you have either favorite stories or favorite types of stories, like or either that you loved growing up or that you like love now, like what's that, is it maybe a genre, maybe a type of story, or have you got something specific? Like, what would that be?
Well, as a kid I was a big Harry Potter fan, and I think I look for that kind of same itch to be scratched in what I watch now, which is it's not one genre.
Yeah.
It's blending. It might be mystery and coming of age, or something. One reason I think why we really do genuinely like big franchise movies is they kind of have to put everything in there so that everybody gets a little bit of something.
Good point.
And it's like streamlined, and it's not a mess of a movie, hopefully, most of the time.
Yeah.
But you have a bit of a mystery and romance and action.
Yeah.
And so I like when all those things mix together. So things like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And even the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
They find a way to like put those genres together, maybe innovate it on it a little bit, but also have a satisfying character arc. So those are my favorite kind of things. I also really like indie films, but there's something about a really like well done franchise movie where you get to the end and you're like, wow, that was a journey.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of old TV shows. Well, I don't want to say old. They're just older, and sometimes it really doesn't matter if it is on like YouTube. Like there's just like a playlist where somebody just uploaded the entire shows. Some examples are like Wings. I remember watching Wings one time, and this old sitcom with Brooke Shields that was on for like 4 or 5 seasons, and kind of the funny story about it is it's like it was up against Friends, so like a lot of people haven't heard about it. I'm fascinated with Hollywood in general, so I like a lot of stories that deal with that, and like child stars, things like that. One of my favorite comedies is a David Spade movie called Dickie Roberts, former child star.
At no point did I think that like, oh, we're going to talk about David Spade at some point today. But yeah, this is awesome. Okay,
yeah.
Be careful if you bring David Spade up around her.
This is awesome. Like I'm really
an obsession.
It's a whole thing.
Nuts.
But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite all time movies. And then I'm currently watching Law and Order SVU, like for the first time ever.
Okay.
This is like the longest running drama on television, and I'd never seen it before, so I was like, let me start from the pilot episode 1.
There you go. It has like
I get to hear Mariska Hargitay updates every couple
day.
of days.
Oh yeah, every day.
This is what's going on. Did you know about this? It's like, it's been around for 2 decades. I was 4, whenever
I know, right?
whatever it was.
And
Yeah.
Mariska was like 12 years old when she started. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. All right. Well, listen, this has been incredible. I think that what you've done has been really great to watch and see, and from a personal growth standpoint, but like also, I don't know, it's incredible to know, just from that art standpoint of like how many people and how much of it is going on around us that we don't necessarily know, we take for granted. Because for some people it turns into something, like for the two of you, and then for other people it's just like, hey, this is the release. Like I need to play for 15 minutes a day. I need to do this, or it's I can one more way I can connect with my kids by playing together. One more way that I can do, and so the value that it brings is really so deep, and so it's fun to kind of talk to people doing that. And then I don't know, just the storytelling has been incredible. So like, the best place for people to listen to Swell is on Spotify. Like, is that like, how do you guys get the most out of them going to listen to it right now?
It's on most major streaming platforms. The best way that they could find it is to go to our Instagram at set.west, and then there's a link that can take them to either YouTube Music, Spotify, or Apple Music. Sorry, we're not Apple people, but that would be the easiest way.
Okay. So at set.west on Instagram is probably the best way
to go and see,
to keep track of what you guys are doing, to get connected to the music, to get connected to everything else. Okay. Well, thank you 1,000 times.
Thank you,
so
Jonathan.
it's been really fun. But all right. Thank you everyone for watching now, listening later, whatever it might be. Next week, we're going to talk to Destin Ortego, because it is time for not only Festival International, but Accelerate South, the remarkable stuff that OM puts together during that whole entrepreneurship, bringing in creators and inventors and innovators and entrepreneurs and business owners. And so we're going to talk about all of that at a time that is perfect. So thank you so much. I'm going to roll over here and press the stop button at the same time.